All right, we just wrapped up week 17 of the NFL season. Just 1 week remaining for the regular season. It has gone by so fast. Large chunks of the league are looking forward to 2025, bringing in the new year, while other teams have glory set on New Orleans to bring home that ever elusive Lombardi trophy. I'm going to go through, rank all 32 teams, 1 through 32. I'm watching 99% of all these games. I'm taking notes, keeping tabs. Let's just hop on into it. Let's start with our bottom tier teams 32 through 23. Okay, the Patriots, now the holder of the number one overall pick, and this team is a disaster. Drake May's good. Gerard Mayo's a terrible head coach. They are bad at drafting. They're bad at signing free agents, and this roster is pathetic. Tennessee at 31, another really bad football team. I don't know if Brian Callahan's going to be much longer the head coach. You have no quarterback, but they have slid to the number 2 spot, so there is potential to draft one of their guys. Cleveland, probably the most desperate and lowest situation of all these teams at 30 here. Like, the roster's bad, the offense is terrible. They're stuck in the worst contract and trade in NFL history with Deshaun Watson. They refuse to move on from him. Myles Garrett's probably going to demand a trade. I mean, there's just no hope for this franchise. Giants at 29, terrible. Giants threw away the first pick. Drew Lock is apparently, Patrick Mahomes in week 17 against a Colts team who needs a win. 45 points, actually insane to think about. Jacksonville, terrible. Doug Peterson's not going to be the head coach of this team next year. But what are they going to do at quarterback? Is Trevor Lawrence actually going to be the guy, or is it time to start drafting again? New Orleans at 27, they're in cap hell. They're old. They have no quarterback. They need a head coach. Lots of bad things for them. Chicago at 26, they need to figure this thing out real quick because Caleb Williams could be starting to head towards bust territory. Not all his fault that he's, on the precipice of breaking the sack record, but still. The offensive line is bad. The defense is bad. The coaching is atrocious. I mean, are they ever going to figure out clock management there? The Jets, maybe one of the most heartbreaking seasons. I shouldn't say heartbreak. Disappointing seasons ever. You had everything there. Rodgers is a shit show. He's gone. Garrett Wilson's going to demand a trade if you bring him back. What are you going to do with this team? Nobody wants to work for owner Woody Johnson. The Panthers at 24. Spicy, but really not that great overall. I think there's some foundational pieces there. I do like the turnaround Bryce Young had this year. Defense is awful. Chuba Hubbard, didn't play. He's on the IR, but he's a really good running back. Adam Thielen still has a little bit left in the tank for them. And Vegas at 23. Vegas is competitive. They're fighting hard. It's probably going to keep Antonio Pierce's job, but they don't have a quarterback now. Does Shadur Sanders say, I only want to play for the Raiders or some shit like that? But of course, Vegas throws away their situation. Brock Bowers is unbelievable. Probably would be a rookie of the year in most other years if it wasn't for Jaden Daniels. But let's move on. Let's get into our middle tier teams 22 through 16. Okay, the Colts at 22, one of the most embarrassing losses of the NFL this season. A playoff berth on the line, and they would have been first in line. If the Broncos lose this week, they would have been the team, but they get blown away by a horrendous Giants team. And we saw what Pat McAfee had to say about the Colts. It's a disaster. Dallas at 21, awful. But if the scoreboard didn't matter, the Cowboys could have won that football game, according to Micah Parsons. San Francisco at 20, just like bad. They played a little hard. Brock Purdy, real question marks now what San Francisco is going to do at the quarterback position because he's going to want to get paid because he's made absolutely nothing. What do you do there? It feels like this Kyle Shanahan reign is over and the Niners could be in a terrible situation, one of the oldest teams in the league. Cardinals at 19, got to get rid of Kyler Murray. I think there's good foundational pieces there, but Kyler Murray's never going to be a good enough quarterback to seriously win you playoff games. I mean, all you have to do is lay it up to Trey McBride. You beat the Rams. No, you're going to whip it off his face. It's just always something with Kyler. Atlanta at 18. I like Michael Penix. I like what I saw from Penix. I think Penix is the future there in Atlanta, but maybe if you didn't spend $100 million on Kirk Cousins, like you could have added to your defense that was terrible, or you could have went to Penix like 4 weeks ago and they would have had a real shot to win the NFC South. They would probably be in control, but then you throw it away. Riley Patterson leaves the field goal short, and now your season is basically over. Miami hanging on by a thread. Snoop Huntley was actually serviceable against Cleveland. We don't know what Tua's status is going to be, but Miami has a shot. I think every AFC team wants to see the Dolphins in that 7 seed because cold weather and the Dolphins are a match made for nobody. And then the Seattle Seahawks at 16. Season's over for them. It was a good run. They had a really strong, late to middle end of the season, but losing 2 in a row at home against the Packers and the Vikings ultimately sunk their season. But let's get what you guys came here for. My top 15 teams, all these teams fighting for that playoff spot. Most of these teams are in the postseason and have their eyes set on New Orleans in February. Let's start it off with 15. Okay, Houston at 15. Houston's kind of fallen off a cliff, but they're going to be hosting a playoff game. They're your 4 seed in the AFC, locked into it. But what a disastrous performance on Christmas. It was just embarrassingly bad. The offense is a train wreck now with no Tank Dell. It's pretty much Nico and CJ, a bad offensive line. They can't consistently run the football, and the defense is no better. CJ Stroud's really regressed, man. This is the kind of CJ Stroud people were worried about drafting going into the draft process of his rookie year. Like, he just doesn't seem to process things fast enough, makes poor decisions with the football sometimes, doesn't take advantage of his legs. Now, I know he's running for his life back there, but it's really, really concerning. The defense isn't really good either. Good pass rush, a good corner, but just not an overall good unit, and that's on D'Amico Ryans. He's the head coach of this team. He is a defensive guy. There's some real question marks in Houston, but again, you can win a home playoff game and everyone feels like, okay, good end to the season once again, but Houston here at 15. Okay, the Broncos here at 14. You look, Denver, I've been calling it all year that they were frauds, and they're looking like frauds. Now, on the precipice, have to win a game against the Kansas City Chiefs backups to back into the playoffs. We know this. Denver is limited offensively, and their defense has kind of come back to earth. The run defense is still good, but that secondary, man, is getting cooked week in and week out against good offensive teams. Now, you like the positive signs with Bo Nix. He still throws that terrible interception every game, it feels like, but he did do a good job, had the Hail Mary, not even, had the game-tying touchdown at the end of that game, but they really let that one slip, and honestly, I think he should be punished for backing into the playoffs like Denver's about to, but we'll see where it is. I think there is some positive signs. Bo Nix is slightly better than I thought he would be. Team still can't run the football. That's not going to translate well in the postseason. Courtland Sutton's a dog at receiver, so we need to add some more offensive pieces and get that secondary fixed. You have Patrick Surtain, who's probably the best corner in the league, but everybody else sucks on that Denver defense. They got to get some things figured out in Denver, but, way over expectations, I think, for a lot of reasonable Broncos fans. Probably were hoping for 8-9 wins, and they're probably going to find themselves in a wild card game. Okay, don't look now. I got the Bengals here at 13. They're probably not going to get into the playoffs, and it's going to be one of the biggest organizational failures ever. Joe Burrow is your MVP this season. If we're going strictly on who is playing the best this year, Joe Burrow has been out of this world. He's going to be one of the only guy ever to throw 45 touchdowns and not win the MVP. He's out of his mind good. T. Higgins was great on Saturday. Pair that with Jamar Chase, who's like leading the NFL in every receiver category, real triple crown threat. It's just this defense. This defense has been a disaster for the entire season. They've been playing a little bit better of late, but it's still like, I feel like I could go out there, run a route, and pick up 7 yards on this Bengals defense, or maybe even score a touchdown on them. It's just that bad, and teams can scheme up against them all day, no problem whatsoever, and you can even run against them. It's just like, it's crazy how bad the Bengals defense is, but they're not going to be good enough. I think this would be the scariest team to get into that 17. There is in no world where Buffalo wants to see the Bengals in the first round of the playoffs because Joe Burrow is the Grim Reaper right now. He's not going to win the MVP, probably should win the MVP, but it is what it is, a wasted season once again in Cincinnati due to organizational ineptitude. Okay, I'm keeping the Buccaneers here at 12. The Buccaneers get new life once again with the Falcons losing. Strong performance against Carolina. Baker Mayfield not screwing around. They did lose that game 2 weeks ago to the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and they were pissed. Baker, 5 touchdowns. Defense is still awesome. It's really hard to run against the Buccaneers. Secondary is a concern, but they were better against Carolina. I know Carolina kind of all over the place, but I think that's going to be the ultimate problem with this team. Their defensive secondary is bad. Teams are going to be able to throw on them, but Baker Mayfield in this offense is very scary for anybody in the postseason, and they're probably going to get the 14-win Vikings or the 14-win Lions in the first round in Tampa Bay. Baker's playoff experience, he's a big game player. They have a great running game. Bucky Irvin has come on as a really good, just true three down running back for the Buccaneers. You still have Mike Evans, just embarrassing DBs out there. He's for sure a Hall of Famer, my guy Mike. Pair that with, the oncoming play of the rookie McMillan, and you got to get Kate Otten back out there. But this is a scary Tampa Bay team that could potentially go on a run here, upset a 14-win team at home, maybe win another game and find themselves in the NFC Championship game. I think ultimately the defense is going to be their downfall, but I can't ever count out Baker Moneymaker. Okay, I got Pittsburgh here at 11. They're really struggling right now, but we knew this was going to happen. Looking at the schedules, this was a gauntlet of a schedule, and they racked up enough wins to secure that playoff spot. Now, they're either going to be the 5 seed or the 6 seed. Most likely, they do have a chance to win the AFC North still if the Ravens slip up against Cleveland, but realistically, this is a wild card team. Losing George Pickens has really hurt them, kind of brought this offense back down to earth, and Russell Wilson's kind of regressing a little bit. This team isn't able to run the football as consistently, and the Steelers' defense is a problem. They're not getting stops anymore. They're just not this unit that was terrorizing offenses for the most part of this year. This looked like it was going to be the best defense in football, and they were damn good for most of the year, especially when the offense started scoring points. They were getting leads, and they could just tee off on people. TJ Watt's talked about it. Like, there's just something not right in Pittsburgh now. Get Pickens back out there. We're trying to get him up to speed. Maybe the offense can pick up, but it's really going to matter where they ultimately end up. If Pittsburgh can get the 5 seed, head to Houston. That's a very winnable game against the Texans. If they're the 6 seed going into Baltimore, I wouldn't pick Pittsburgh, but it is a division game. They've played Baltimore relatively well this season, so there is some potential here for the Steelers, but Mike Tomlin going on a very long stretch without winning a playoff game. He never is below 500, but he's got to start getting some playoff wins, man, but Pittsburgh's never going to let their head coach go. Decent season for the Steelers, but I think ultimately this could be a one-and-done run. Okay, I got the Chargers here at 10. Look at LA starting to come on strong. Now, I know they're playing the pathetic Patriots, but it's looking really good. Ladd McConkey having an excellent rookie season at wide receiver. They do need one more receiver, it feels like, with this team, but Justin Herbert, they started letting him air it out, sling the rock, and that's what you're going to need to win some postseason games. Bring back J.K. Dobbins. The running game looks a lot better, and this Chargers defense has given up some points to the elite tier offenses in this league, but they have been an excellent unit all year. What an incredible turnaround by Jim Harbaugh. That's just what he does. He goes in there, changes the culture, establishes things, wins some games, and the Chargers are in an excellent spot right now. If they can win this weekend and the Steelers lose to the Bengals, they slide into that 5 seed, head into the Texans. Like I said, everybody wants to play the Texans. They could beat the Texans, and they're a scary team going to Kansas City for the potential first round or the second round of the playoffs. You don't want to play a division team. They've done a really good job against Kansas City in both games. So this is a spicy Chargers team here, man. I think the Chargers are going to shake their Chargers shtick and maybe win a couple of close games here. I'd be very scared about playing the Chargers because a great run game, a great defense, and a quarterback who is an elite tier talent out there is good enough to win some games. Now, I wish they had some more playmakers on the outside, but ultimately, what a successful year one for Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. Okay, I got the Rams here at 9, and I'm a little bit concerned. I was thinking the Rams were going to be the sleeping giant potentially in the NFC, kind of mosey around. They have officially won the NFC West, so they're going to be hosting that home playoff game. Need to beat the Seahawks this week to lock up that 3 seed, and I think there's a big difference between that 3 seed and that 4 seed in the NFC. Probably going to get the Commanders in the first round if you get that 3 seed. Otherwise, you're getting the Lions or the Vikings. Much different matchup there. Potentially could get the Packers in that 6th game. But LA at home is what they want. The offense has kind of looked weird and slow, grindy the last few weeks. Matthew Stafford starting to look a little bit his age. Not that kind of elite run he had during the middle of the season where he was slinging the rock. Where the hell is Cooper Kupp, though? Puka Nacua has still been excellent. He's an elite tier, number 1 wide receiver guy. I love a wide receiver like Puka Nacua. He blocks everybody. But where the hell is Cooper Kupp? Cooper Kupp was having a really strong season. He's been nowhere the last 3 or 4 weeks. Just nowhere to be seen. Kyron Williams still running the ball really well. Their defense is a bit of a concern. This is a very young defensive unit. They get after the quarterback. Jared Verse probably going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Secondary needs some work. I just think this is kind of a weird Rams team right now, but I would not be shocked at all if the Rams go on a run here, get to the NFC Championship game, get to the Super Bowl. But I am concerned right now with what I've seen from this offense. But a couple of home games in nice warm LA can get that thing fixed. LA here at 9. Okay, we got the Packers here at 8, and you know what? The score was a lot closer than this game was against Minnesota. Green Bay got dominated for about 3.5 quarters against the Vikings. Really struggled to get anything going. Josh Jacobs ran the ball okay. Jordan Love was awful. No good receivers. The defense couldn't stop a nosebleed in the secondary. The run defense looked really good, but that was about it. Still got their turnover. The play calling was inconsistent, and this is kind of the story of the Packers season. Their losses are the best losses you're going to see out of a team in the NFL, maybe ever. I mean, they have 5 losses this year. They lost to the Lions twice, the Vikings twice, and the Eagles. All those teams have 14 or 13 wins. That's an elite cast of characters, but they really don't have any great wins against good teams. The problem is, like, Seattle's their best win probably in the NFC. The Eagles, Vikings, and Lions are the 3 best teams in the conference. They can't beat those teams. They play them close, but they just can't beat them. And now they find themselves in a bad situation heading to the playoffs as probably the 7th seed if Washington takes care of Dallas on Sunday. They're going to have to go to Philadelphia in round 1. Now, if you want to play Philadelphia, round 1's the round to play them because Jalen Hurts coming off the concussion. We'll see how that plays out. Maybe Saquon Barkley is going to get hurt because they're going to play him to break the rushing record. I just worry about this Packers team. I think Jordan Love getting injured week 1 kind of set back his development for year 2, but we've talked about this before. They're a power running team. Their defense really isn't as good as it needs to be, but they turn people over, so that helps. But when you don't get enough turnovers, things can get hurt, and there's no elite wide receiver on this team. Christian Watson was out, but he's not an elite number 1 dog. They have a lot of good 1B, 1C receivers. They just don't have an elite dog, and that's the kind of guy you need to have in the postseason, a money guy on 3rd down to go pick up 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, and it just doesn't feel like the Packers have that. Now, would I be surprised if the Packers go on a run here and make it to the NFC Championship game? Probably not, because I still think this is a well-rounded football team, just maybe not quite at that elite level of the top teams in the conference. Okay, at 7, I got the Commanders here. What a monster win for the Commanders on Sunday. It looked like they were potentially going to blow that game, but get to overtime. Jaden Daniels just takes over, wins the game for them. And you know what? This is year 1 of a rebuild. We got a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels who's going to win Rookie of the Year, one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. Dan Quinn, first-year head coach. They are way ahead of schedule in Washington. And now they find themselves in a really good spot. They're the 6th seed right now in the NFC. If they can beat Dallas, they will hold that spot, go to LA. I feel like they could beat the Rams right now. I think Washington's been playing great football. Get the running game going. Jaden Daniels has been out of this world. We got Zach Ertz playing like 2017 Zach Ertz. That's a big time boost there. The defense is still a bit of a concern. They're just really not that much talent on this defensive unit, but Dan Quinn is a very good defensive head coach. He's going to scheme them up the best he can. I think this Washington Commanders team is probably 2 years away from making a serious run at a potential Super Bowl if they can make the right moves. But for year 1, what an excellent team. Jaden Daniels is kind of a scary rookie in the playoffs. Just what he can do with his legs are stuff we just don't see in this playoff. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks in the NFC, you got Goff, you got Darnold, you got Jalen Hurts, who's kind of mobile, but Jaden Daniels out of this damn world taking off. Even like Jordan Love, like there's nobody like Jaden Daniels right here. So maybe Washington's got a little bit of that special sauce here in the year 1 of this new ownership group. Washington here at number 7. Okay, Baltimore at 6, really good win on Christmas Day, kind of dominated fashion. Lamar is really making a push at that MVP number 3. He's been excellent down the stretch here. Pair that with a very strong running game. Derrick Henry coming back on. And this defense has been much improved. This has been a very good run defense throughout the year, but the secondary has been atrocious. They've been playing a lot better lately, playing with a lot more confidence. But we know how Baltimore gets. Baltimore can sometimes let down in spots. They can get into these weird rhythms where they're just try and run the ball a million times, or they get away from the running game and they just try and throw it a million times. They got to find this right balance with Lamar in the postseason where Lamar's got to go out there and make plays where we can still run Derrick Henry, pick up those chunk yards, and the defense can play complementary football. The entire season is going to be measured about what Baltimore does in the postseason. Now, they're in great position here. Win on Saturday. You're the AFC North champs. You're going to be hosting a playoff game. Then, potentially, probably, you win that game. You're going to Buffalo for the second round. And if Buffalo gets upset in round 1, maybe you're hosting the second round. The biggest thing here is, can you beat the Chiefs? Can you beat Kansas City? Can you beat Patrick Mahomes? Had a great week 1 this year against them, but still fell short. That's going to be the ultimate measuring stick of the Ravens, but I definitely think this team can make a run to the Super Bowl if they just get over that playoff bugaboo. Okay, I got the Eagles here at number 5. Took care of business against the Cowboys with Kenny Pickett, with Tanner McKee at quarterback. We saw a really good offensive performance in the passing game without Jalen Hurts, which is kind of weird, but you kind of wanted to see. We saw Devonta Smith have a big game. A.J. Brown caught a touchdown. It was just really refreshing. Pair that with Saquon Barkley chunking out a ton of yards on the ground, just 101 yards away from breaking the record. But the Eagles are locked into that 2 seed. They're going to be hosting the first round of the playoffs and the second round if they can take care of business. So Eagles have a clear shot to the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, but Jalen Hurts coming off the concussion, that's a question mark. What are we going to see? And are we going to see this defensive secondary hold up? We know the defensive front is awesome. It's impossible to run against the Eagles. Shouldn't say impossible, but it sure as hell sucks to try and run against them. They can get after the quarterback. It's the secondary that's been playing great all season. They had a little bit of a lull and a hiccup against the Commanders. Can we see more consistent play out of this young corner group? It does concern me a little bit with as many young guys they have back there, because the young guys do tend to break down, get worn out the longer the NFL season goes, because we play a shit ton of games in the National Football League. But the Eagles are very scary. Would not be surprised at all if they put it together, go on a Super Bowl run. But my biggest concern is that secondary, and is Nick Sirianni going to find a way to screw this up? He's going to do some goofball nonsense thing that just screws this thing up for the Eagles. Lean on Saquon Barkley, lean on that defense, and Jalen Hurts got to make a couple big explosive plays when he comes back. Should be a fantastic round 1 game. Eagles and the Packers at the link. Eagles here at 5. Okay, at 4, I got my Minnesota Vikings. What a huge win for the Vikings, dominating large chunks of that game against the Packers. Now, they let it slide a little bit in the fourth quarter, but KOC in the offense gets aggressive, seals the game up with a first down. And how about Sam Darnold? 14 wins as the starting quarterback, the most by any starting quarterback in Vikings history in a single season. He's been excellent career years in passing yards, touchdowns, had his career game against the Packers. This Vikings team is set up run, and it all comes down to the showdown in Detroit this week. The Vikings win, they are the 1 seed, and then it sets up very nicely going to US Bank Stadium, one of the hardest places to play in the NFL. And if you lose this game, though, you're on the road for 3 games. So really, really huge implications, but I hate to say it. I know my heart's going to get destroyed. I do think the Vikings are set up and easily could be in that Super Bowl run here. I would be surprised, but I don't think anybody else out there would be surprised if the Vikings go off and win a few games and get to the Super Bowl. This defense is elite. They can stop people. It's a pain in the ass to run on it. Brian Flores schemes things up better than anybody in the NFL right now. Maybe him and Spags are 1A, 1B, just because Spags got a couple rings under his belt. But elite coaching staffs, good players across the board, and the offense is just a juggernaut. When you have guys like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison as your number 2, TJ Hawkinson is your check down tight end, even the emergence of Jalen Naylor and a solid veteran running back in Aaron Jones, it's just kind of all coming together, it feels like, for Minnesota. But no one's going to believe it until they see it in the postseason, so I totally get that. But I think the Vikings are as big of a threat as anybody to head to New Orleans in February. Vikings here at 4. All right, at 3, we got the Bills here still. Look, this season all comes down to one thing for Buffalo. They're the 2 seed in the AFC. They just got to make it past the Kansas City Chiefs. Can they beat the Chiefs? Josh Allen's probably going to win the MVP. He's been lights out this season. He's putting up all the production he's put up in his career, but he's cut down on the turnovers, those back-breaking interceptions or those stupid fumbles that he would constantly have, putting his defense in bad situations. Pair that with a really good run game and a really good talent of backfield with James Cook leading the way. Plus, the wide receivers are starting to come on. Amari Cooper has been MIA, but man, he's an elite tier wide receiver in his prime. I think we're going to find a little bit more love for him in the postseason. Rookie Keon Coleman looking strong. Pair that with Khalil Shakir, talented tight end, and Dalton Kincaid. It's all set up for the Bills on offense. Now, can their defense hold up? Their defense has been Swiss cheese the last few weeks. If their defense can start playing a little bit better like they were playing towards the early and middle parts of this season, Buffalo is going to be a real pain in the ass to deal with. And I definitely am going to be surprised if the Bills finally get over the hump and get to the Super Bowl, but we know what it's going to come down to. They can beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Can they avoid the upset prior to playing Kansas City? And can they finally get over the Grim Reaper that is Patrick Mahomes? Okay, we got the Lions here at 2. Lions take care of business against the 49ers. They're hyping up, acting like it's a revenge game against the Gimp squad that was in San Francisco. Kind of a weird, move by Dan Campbell playing his players like that. They're playing on Monday. They already have short rest, and they got everything to play for here in Week 18, hosting the Vikings. Winner wins the NFC North and the number 1 overall seed and that first round bye in the NFC. Now, the first game between these two teams was excellent, went right down to the wire. I would think the Lions should rest, but Dan Campbell's the stubborn son of a bitch. He's going to play his hard mouth football. And you know what? I think the players appreciate it. If you're going to preach this, you're going to have to live by it, and they're living by it. Now, Detroit's offense is as good as any offense you're going to see in the NFL. The Ben Johnson does an excellent job of drawing up plays, getting guys open. Now, not having David Montgomery is a kind of a concern here now, but he could be back for the postseason, especially if the Lions get that bye. Their defense is the real issue here. Their defense is super banged up. They don't have many talented players across the board. Still doing a good job in the run game, but the linebackers aren't great. The corners aren't great. Thank God for the secondary. Kirby Joseph is a dirty player, but he leads the league in interceptions, so he forces the ball out and turns them over, and that's what the Lions defense needs to do. Still do a relatively okay job getting after the quarterback, even with losing Aiden Hutchinson for most of the season. He's also on track to potentially be back for a Super Bowl run here, but it all comes down to this. There's a massive difference between bye home field advantage in the NFC playoffs and having to go on the road for 3 games, but it could set up nicely even if Detroit does lose on Sunday. Go to Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay did already beat them, so they'll have a little extra Detroit motivation. And then heading to Minnesota in the first round of the playoffs, a team where you've already won this year. And then you're right there in the NFC Championship game once again. So Detroit's going to have to lean on their offense, have to outscore some teams. But if their defense can turn people over for some plays, and if Dan Campbell doesn't make a disastrous coaching decision on being too aggressive or passing up points or maybe taking points when he shouldn't be taking points here, I don't think Dan Campbell's probably going to do that. But if Dan Campbell can kind of avoid any of those disastrous moves and situations, I think the Lions are set up for a Super Bowl or bust run. And finally, at number 1, we have the Kansas City Chiefs locking up that number 1 overall seed on Christmas Day. Now, the Chiefs are in a little bit of a weird spot. They're going to have 11 days off before they play this Sunday, and then they're going to have a first round bye. So I expect the starters to play at least the first half. You don't want to go like you don't want to go like 20 something days without playing serious football in Kansas City. Now, it's the Arrowhead Invitational. All they got to do is win the first round game, and they will be in the AFC Championship game. This is somehow the best record Chiefs team we've seen under this dynasty run, and they don't feel nearly as good. They felt so vulnerable this year, but they just keep winning football games, keep winning close games. And this is, I've talked about, not luck. This is a skill. This was like a misconception that, oh, if you win all these close games, you're going to lose all these close games. That's how the NFL works. Nah, we are at a point where great teams and good teams win the close games. They believe they're going to make the plays no matter what happens. When bad things happen, they don't panic. And when good things happen, they don't get too high. They just take care of business. We know what Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and this team are going to do. I want to see more consistency from the run game. What the hell's up with Isaiah Pacheco? He's been awful since coming back from injury. Kareem Hunt's been the better of the running back, but they still really just don't have a good running game going. We're getting the wide receiver core healthy. We have DeAndre Hopkins. We have Xavier Worthy, bringing back Hollywood Brown. Obviously, Travis Kelce is a Hall of Fame tight end, one of the best tight ends to ever play the game, and he's still got enough juice in those legs, I think, for this postseason run. Defense is going to lead the way with Kansas City, an elite defensive unit. They got to get some things figured out on the back end. The secondary has not been very good the last month or so. So if they can get that stuff figured out, we know Kansas City is going to be the favorite to win the Super Bowl. And it's setting up very nicely for the Chiefs to at least get back for that three-peat. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who am I too high on? Who am I too low on? How is your team doing? How did 2024 treat you guys? I just want to say a special shout out to everyone who's watched, supported, liked, subscribed throughout the year. It's been the best year in channel history, and I truly couldn't keep doing this without you guys. So if you haven't already, drop a quick like, subscribe to the channel. We got daily sports content. If you want to support the channel more, sign up for a channel membership. You get all sorts of access to cool and exclusive content. Help support me, allows me to keep making this great content for you guys every single day. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.